first things first, we want to make sure the oil in the scooter is warm. So take your scooter for a ride around 10-15 minutes, park it, turn it off, and then we want to first remove the oil filter. And this is with the oil filter wrench. And I already loosened it up a bit here, but I'm just showing you for demonstration purposes where it's located. And you really have to put some elbow into it, but it'll come off eventually. And once it's loosened up, you can just unscrew it by hand and then set it aside. And the next step is we want to remove the oil plug, and that's with the 15th, 16th wrench. Now, I already did this prior to filming to loosen it up. You have to put a lot of elbow into it, but right now I'm just showing you for demonstration purposes where it's located and what I did. I loosened it up first with the wrench, and then once it was loose enough, I used my fingers to remove the cap there. Now once we have the oil filter and the oil plug removed, we want to let that drain probably about 15 minutes. You want to really let it drip out everything possible. This is not a rush job. You want to get as much of that old oil out of there so you can replenish it with some beautiful clean oil. And now we want to take our pliers and we want to remove the oil plug filter from the oil plug. So we just grab right onto it, right in the center, and just pull directly outwards. You'll feel it give. And just make sure the oil plug filter is clean of debris. You can just do a visual inspection. If you feel inclined, you can wipe it off. But if everything's okay, then you can just place it right back in there. Next, we want to take a clean paper towel, clean off all the edges around the oil plug and the oil filter, and just make sure the area is nice and clean for when you place in the new oil filter and replace the oil plug. Now with the oil filter, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the oil, I'm going to tilt the bottle upside down for just a second, that way I can get some oil in the cap. All I'm going to do is I'm going to stick my finger, grab some of that oil on the cap, and I want to apply that all around the O-ring of the new oil filter. Just a quick once around, and that way it really helps seal the new filter. Now you can tighten that by hand, and then if you feel inclined, you can use your wrench. I'm just going to tighten it by hand, and then I'm going to use a paper towel and just clean off any excess oil that I have on the filter. Next, we'll take our oil plug cover and we will tighten that on initially first by hand, and then I'll get my 15th, 16th wrench and I'll tighten it again. And I'm sorry, I don't have the torque specs, but you could probably find that online. I'm just going to tighten it enough to where it feels secure, but I don't want to over tighten it to the point where I ruin the O-ring. Alright, now that that's tightened up, we want to add the oil to the scooter. So we have to remove the dipstick, and I'm going to use these pliers here since it's a little bit tight, and then we can just simply twist off the dipstick, and this is where we're going to add the 1.1 quarts of 5W40 motorcycle oil. And I'll slow it down here to show you what exactly the port looks like where the oil is going to be going in. And now we simply take our funnel and we start to pour. Take your time here, there's no rush. If you pour too fast, then the oil is just going to wind up overspilling. Now that we have the oil in the scooter, we want to run the engine for a minute. That way the oil can get to all the necessary parts, and then we want to check the oil level with a dipstick. We want to clean it off, and we want to see if the oil is between the lower mark and the top mark. That's the minimum and the maximum level. So we dip it in, and we check to see where the oil is, and it appears that it's just above the maximum level. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to dip it in one more time, but this time I'm going to twist it all the way completely shut. And now when we remove it, let's check again. Same thing, it's still above the maximum level. So what we have to do is we have to remove a little bit of oil, and that involves removing the oil plug and draining out just a little bit. We're going to take our 15/16 wrench again, we're going to crank on it until we feel it give. And then I'm just going to make sure I get my oil pen ready. We'll put it right underneath, and then I'll unloosen the oil plug by hand, just enough to drain some oil out, and then I'll tighten it back up and we'll check the levels again with the dipstick. Once again, make sure your dipstick is nice and clean, and we want to dip it all the way in, and we want to check to see where that oil level is. And guess what? Right now we are perfect. We are just under the maximum line here. Gonna dip the stick one last time and twist it completely shut just to make sure the levels are perfect. And when we pull it out, we double check, and guess what? We are right on the money, right below the maximum line. I'm gonna wipe it off clean. I'm gonna put it right back in, completely shut it, twist it shut, and guess what, folks? We are rocking and rolling. The very last step is to make sure that we properly discard our used motor oil. We'll use the funnel and pour it right back into the empty bottle of 5W40. We'll seal it up and we'll drop it off at our local auto store and they'll take care of it. You do want to go for a quick ride around the block, make sure that everything's in running order. One thing that you might notice is that you'll see a little bit of smoke coming off of any spot where oil might have touched, most likely around the exhaust. This is completely normal and it will burn off in just a few moments. We're going to need an oil pan first off and a 15/16 wrench to unscrew the oil plug. We'll need an oil filter wrench to unscrew the oil filter, a pair of pliers to remove the oil plug filter, an oil funnel so that way we can cleanly get oil into the scooter. We'll need the K&N 183 premium oil filter. This is the OEM spec oil filter for the scooter. And most importantly, we're going to need 5W40 motorcycle oil. This is from Castrol Power 1. We'll need 1.1 quarts. And I'll put a link in the description below for all these items so you can check them out for yourself. Well, if you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I'll see you later. Bye.